All right, and yeah, we are recording audio of this, so there'll be that as well. Hence, all of the opt-in things that we did. There are some places where, in order to record somebody, we need their explicit permission. Hence, the reason for that. But and just because it's polite to ask. So, welcome everybody. Geez, nice turnout. I'm glad to see so many people. For We haven't done a town hall in a little while, but I think now is an appropriate time. We have a lot of information to share, and we'll have a period after the presentation for questions as well. Um, so I'm going to dive right in. There's an agenda on the board if you want to follow along in the in-world town hall, but I have some more specific notes. So the first topic that I'd like to discuss is coming out of beta. Um, we have been kind of describing ourselves as a beta grid for a while, but essentially what will turn out to be the first year of our life as a grid. That was in part for a couple of reasons. We first created Utopia Skye Grid initially as a vehicle for us to do Golden Touch shows. Some of you are familiar with that. It's so we that was the reason to have a dedicated grid. Was I wanted the ability to control the technology and really be able um, to have the level of performance that I think we needed to have. And we went from there and did other things, like we set up Fetish Fire and other activities. We've been doing a number of things on the grid over time. It was always in the back of my mind that uh, I would like us to get to a point, if it was viable, for us to be a commercial grid, basically like Second Life or like Inworlds was, or other OpenSim grids are. So, but I really wanted us to grow and kind of work out the details about how that was going to work in a beta period when we could offer a little bit better pricing for people that kind of were early joiners and were part of the grid uh, at the beginning. So that's what we had done. And for the past just about a year, our anniversary is coming up in actually the end of August, early September. We'll talk more about that. Um, we'll be a year old, and basically at this point, our plan is to come out of beta and offer regular regions and regular pricing, and 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 the level of performance that I would expect from a commercial grid um, on September 1st. So as of September 1st, our beta period will be ending. Any sales for regions that we make up until that point, so basically until the end of August, would be at our beta pricing. And if you're familiar with the beta program, what we had said was that we would honor beta pricing for beta customers for 1 year after they joined. So basically, for anybody that's in the beta program, um, the pricing that we currently offer, which is $12 for a region, would continue to be honored through the next year. Anybody that buys a region after September 1st will buy at our regular prices. And I'm going to cover some of those in some detail in a little bit. But the big thing I wanted to do is mention um, that we're coming out of beta and that our plan is to run as a commercial grid. Um, so that's the first topic. Like I said, I'll come back to the pricing structure in a little bit. Next thing up is the recent announcement from the Firestorm team, which I just want to touch on briefly because I still don't know that it's well understood in terms of its impact on OpenSim. But the Firestorm team, if you aren't aware, have announced that they're splitting the viewer. They've actually created a separate source code repository for the OpenSim version of Firestorm from Second Life. About 3 months ago, there haven't been a lot of commits to it. They've largely focused their efforts on Second Life and made a release very recently, like basically the beginning of the week, for a new version 6.2 that is Second Life only. Um, they their expectation is that they will release at least one more OpenSim release that is OpenSim only, and that those two viewers would be run separately. There's some discussion about how features will get moved back and forth between the two branches. I actually raised some concerns to Whirly Fizzle, who's one of the project managers with the project, about basically getting test viewers for some of the features, so that we can actually do the engineering work on the OpenSim side. Um, and and that conversation's ongoing, and there will be others, I'm sure, that will move from there. They've been in some discussions, as I understand it, primarily with UBIT on the core team. I've actually encouraged them to broaden that focus a little bit and work with some other groups, because there's a number of people that maintain very large um, OpenSim grids that have their own source tree and don't necessarily track core directly. But if this is a kind of a developing thing, the clear answer is there will be a continued Firestorm viewer for OpenSim and OpenSim grids. The open question is what feature sets will be offered. And actually, it's interesting because in some ways it offers the possibility of doing some OpenSim only features, things that uh, aren't in Second Life, but might be beneficial for OpenSim as well. So that's kind of a developing story, and I'm going to keep following it. I've been interacting with the team and trying to get involved, as I know a couple of other grid owners are. So we'll keep you posted on how that develops. So that's the first two topics. I'd like to turn it over now to Callie and Eagle to talk about the changes that have been happening in Discord.
Okay. We have a lot of changes coming up in Discord. We are going to be changing some categories and adding some features that I think will make more sense for people. Discord has become very prominent in a lot of virtual communities. So, one of the things we want to do, since it is utilized a lot, is restart the training. I've actually deleted the original training video, and I'll be putting up a different one that's more current. That's because the original was now over a year old. But also, we're going to be adding separate advertising sections in each of our categories. If you take a quick look at the Discord server that you're in, you guys are in what's called a category under USG Townhall. There are several other categories. Some you may see, some you may not have access to, depending on the groups that you're in and the permission sets that you were given when you joined. Most of you have the Creators Guild permission set as well, and those have several channels in them too. So what we'll be doing is we'll be adding a channel in that category specifically for advertising. And the reason for that is not only does it help everybody aside from the OpenSim tools, but since advertising and PR and marketing in OpenSim is largely fragmented, this gives us a chance in our own community to make sure that people know that there's stuff going on, because we're still adding features and enhancements to the grid. So the other reason we're doing it this way is because a lot of people will just go ahead and right click a server and just mute the server. And that's great as long as you come back and look at the server from time to time. But if you mute the server entirely, you never get to see what's going on in the server, whether there's been callouts, whether there's events, whether there's important things that need your attention. And so what we're trying to encourage is people to mute channels instead of the server. For example, we have our bot section, which was highly utilized for a while and drove some people crazy. So we made that opt in. So you don't even know it's there, but once you do, you can opt in and then mute that channel if it gets too noisy for you. So in light of some of these changes, we'll be doing some training again. I'll be starting to schedule those things during the day and perhaps in the evening too. It just depends on engagement. So they'll be done in a group session, no more than 10 per, and we'll be doing screen share. I'll be on voice. Nobody else has to. If you've been through my trainings before, then you know kind of what to expect going in here. We're also adding news channels. So whereas ads are specifically targeting events, sales, come look at my shop stuff, news will be related to either the grid or to Discord or things of that type of nature. Currently, there's two news channels. There's one at the way top, and that is for Discord news. I try and keep them separate so that you know if you see something in there, then it's important because it affects Discord and you might need to be aware of it. And then there's news currently in the Utopia Skye Grid channels, which is currently only official USG news for now. We'll be adding some others and spreading them out. I know some people have said it seems like we have a lot of channels, but the truth of the matter is the permission set that you get is only relevant for the things that you're part of. So some of those you may not need to see, some you may need to see, and you just kind of need to know where to go. And I'm happy to help do that. Eagle is instrumental in doing a lot of this as well, so she can help out too. And we'll do some documentation and training around that.
I will be the crash dummy.
Yes, she gets booted regularly. I think that's it for the Discord section. So, Mike, if you want to.
All right. Okay. Up next is the Creators Guild regions. So, in line with kind of coming out of the our beta program, we're making some changes with how we administer the Creators Guild stores. Um, the we offered those originally kind of in a broader, basically made them pretty much available to anybody because we were trying to encourage hypergrid visitors and because we were in beta and we weren't really sure where we were going to go with it. Kind of in line with focusing on a commercial grid, we're changing that when we come out of beta to be basically store spaces is for a fee, and that fee can be kind of addressed in one of two possible ways. So first of all, if you own a land, you're a creator with a region, you're allowed one store per creator on the Guild regions. You can have multiple store, but only one will be free, and you'll need to rent any extra space. I'll talk about that's the other option. If you want a store, but you don't actually have a region, you can rent space for a small or medium store. The prices for the rentals are 250 globits for a small store per week and 500 globits for a medium per week. And prim allotments in those cases is 1,000 for a small space and 2,000 for a medium space. So we're going to continue to make store space available both for region owners and for non-region owners, but there will be fees associated with it in either sense. If you're a region owner, of course, your fee is the fact that you're paying us for a region. Um, and if you're not and you want to rent, then there's a small rental fee associated with it. That will start as of September 1st when we come out of the beta program. Okay. Next up, we've got some information about improvements to the grid. So I'd like to talk about a couple of things. First of all, offline messaging is working. If you send an instant message to somebody and they're not online on the grid, it will go to the offline email address that they've specified in their profile. Um, I'm aware of at least one or two cases, specifically large email providers like Google, where sometimes the stuff ends up in a spam folder. So if you do, you should check the spam folder if you're not getting offlines, just to verify that might be what's happening. I'm doing some work to try and address that. The mail accounts are authenticated now, so Google should be trusting them, but I'll continue to work through individual services and make sure that we can reliably deliver mail. I get some statistics on that, so I can tell when the other side is treating us as spam, or if we get blacklisted, things like that. That's a little bit of administration that will happen, but you should be able to get offline messaging now for messages that are sent when someone is not online. Another thing that's coming probably in about a week to a week and a half is full search capability. Classifieds will be working. There will be fees for classifieds. I'll provide a bit more information when we get to that point. closer to September. Um, the one type of search capability that won't work initially is events. Um, in fact, the search part of the events is in place and it will work, but you need a way to be able to create events. And that's based on some website work that I'm doing. So, but all of that will be in place before September 1st. So you by the September 1st timeframe, all the search will be working, and you will be able to create both events and classifieds and everything else. Um, so that's something to look forward to too. Like I said, probably rolling out the search infrastructure in the next 2 weeks. All right. We've actually shared a lot of information. I'm wondering if we shouldn't take a quick pause for questions, or unless you want, we can hold them all to the end. Um,
I'm okay. Which, whichever, if people have a lot of questions and they want to start asking them, I'm okay with giving up.
yeah, why don't I just pause for a second? If there's any questions on the material we've talked about so far, let's go ahead and toss them out, or you can hold them to an open Q&A at the end. Either way, but I'll pause for a moment to see if anybody has anything. You will have to come off mute if you do. Otto, yeah. I saw the posted quest. Yeah, Otto, we will definitely provide, most will have both the video or the audio recording um, of the meeting, so you'll be able to listen to that. But yes, they'll be written. I'll provide written notes for all of this material. So, for instance, the region structure and the Creators Guild stuff and so on will all be documented, and we can definitely get that to Lil.
The other thing too is there will be official documentation that goes out for the pricing stuff because that's going to be a very big point for a lot of people. So there will be stuff that details all those things. But as far as like a note card with the most important points, we'll be copying the local chat from this channel, Otto, and she can read through that there. It's been largely pretty quiet, so it should just focus on questions and such. And the agenda, of course, can go with it. Sure, go ahead, Lex.
This is Lex. Mike, can you? I don't know if you were going to do this a little bit later. I couldn't tell from the board, but kind of talk about the general state of the OpenSim code and kind of how you're going to handle that on our grid. Forking and that.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's actually item number 8 on the agenda. So, but I will touch on specifically on that because I think it's relevant. It's interesting how grids are doing development on OpenSim versus whether they're just taking a standard package release. So, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no more questions, I will press on. And absolutely, we'll have time for open Q&A at the end. So up next, we've got the region pricing structure. I'm going to go over this verbally now, and then we will provide a written update for pricing that will be consistent with this. I'm not expecting we'll change our prices going forward. These are the prices that will be in effect as of September 1st when we go public. So the main thing to note is we will have a standard region will be $20 US dollars. That comes with a prim allotment of 25,000 prims. So that's essentially double what we currently offer for the beta program. And the beta users, by the way, we've talked about this in the past, but the beta users that are currently present on the grid will have an increase to 25,000 prims when we come out of beta. So all of those will get adjusted at the same time. So the basic standard region will be $20 USD. We basically have 3 types, if you will, of regions that we're offering. The first is a standard region, which is a normal 256 by 256 region. That's the $20 price. There will be a low use region, is the way I'm describing it. A low use region is primarily for waterways, and if you want to put stuff around your region, in order to get one of those, you have to basically own at least one single standard region first, and the price for that is going to be $8 for 5,000 prims and 10 max users on the region, which hopefully should support things like sailing and things like that, but people transiting through a region. But it isn't, and you could certainly use it as a home, a private home, things like that. But the idea being, this is a way for you to add regions to get land around a regular region for sailing, or to increase the level of privacy, but still have a region in place. And then finally, we will offer some VAR regions that are primarily going to focus on 2x2s. So basically 512 by 512. VARs are sort of a mixed bag. There are some performance issues with them in OpenSim generally. There are some cases where they don't work well if you put them next to a standard region, for instance, things like that. I'm going to offer them because I think there will be demand for them, but I don't really want to offer a wide variety of types. So it's going to be primarily the 512 by 512. If somebody really sees a strong use case and they want a lot of our regions, I would encourage you to talk to us, but they will be available. That's basically a $2 upcharge off of the standard $20 price. So a VAR region would be 22 with the same prim allotment. And then in addition to the individual region styles, we're going to offer prim packs as a way to upgrade the prim count for regions. Those are priced at 5,000 prims for $5, up to 45,000 prims. So the most you could buy would be 4 additional prim packs of 20,000 prims to get you to 45, and that would be essentially for a $40 price. So if you want, you could have a standard region at 45,000 prims for $40 USD. So that's in a nutshell the pricing structure. I think what it does is it prices this kind of fairly relative to other grids and their offerings. My goal is to kind of provide hopefully a very high level of service and performance for people. So, and to me, when I say we're going to run a commercial grid, that's what that means. It means that things like overall system performance is maintained, and we're not stacking regions too deep, and all of the kinds of things that you would come to expect about a grid perform well. We're still based on OpenSim, of course, and that comes with some issues and catch-22s. But the my goal is to run this like a commercial offering, and have you expect a level of performance and service that comes along with that. All right. I want to mention, I'm going to switch the order a bit because I want to mention this other thing first. We have a beta grid. It's not been widely advertised. I basically use it for testing code and upcoming features. And it's accessible. So if you go to beta utopiaskygrid.com, there's a website there that is similar to, so it's a simpler version of what we have on the main grid. You can create an account on that website, and it will create a beta grid account for the grid. That the beta grid's fully hypergrid connectable, so you can hypergrid from it and to it. It's really designed as a place to put upcoming changes in code for test purposes. So if you wanted an account on the beta grid, I would, and you're willing to test, I would encourage you to do that and create it. The the one caveat is that um, if you do actually create an account in the beta grid, it's not automatic. Like in the current grid, when you create an account, you get an email and you can reply to that email to verify your account. They're manually verified. So if you create a beta grid account, you should contact one of Callie or myself or Eagle, and we'll get that account enabled so that you can get access to it. Like I said, the main reason you'd want one would be for test purposes, and I'd be grateful, of course, in some cases as we roll out new features, if people are willing to test, that they do that. But I wanted people to be aware that it's out there. I've already touched on search and classified, so let me touch on one more point, and then I'll circle back. I missed some stuff on the discount on the pricing for discounts, and Old had a quick question on agent level, which I'll touch on. But for new code and deployments, and in particular for OpenSim as a whole, uh, as many people are aware, there is an OpenSim core team. The primary person that's developing code for that is Ubit, and he does a really a good job, as much as any one person can do, that is trying to develop something that could be used in a lot of different contexts with a lot of different configurations. Um, what has really kind of emerged, I think, is that most of the larger grids uh, maintain their own code base, and they will selectively take changes from core. There's also a couple of other maintainers that have produced their own distributions, and people will pick those up. Um, in my case for USG, I'm doing the latter. Basically, I started from a fork. I started originally tracking core, and unfortunately, the churn there's a bit too much for what I'm trying to do. I wanted something that was a bit more stable base. So we switched recently to a distribution that Lanani produces. Lanani's a hypergrid resident. Um, she will release occasional changes to that, and I'll merge those in. But I also have quite a few local changes that I'm doing that maintain the grid, the overall performance. There's some things I've talked about before that I want to do, like changes to the estate management, for instance, for content creators to be able to control on a region, for instance, how they sell or accessed but at a more fine grained level through the estate management tools. I've talked about other things about a marketplace, for instance. Those are things that I'd like to offer, and having and maintaining our own code base is really how that's going to happen. So, plus I've been doing this for quite a while. Many of you are aware I was a code contributor in InWorlds for many years and developed mesh there and a bunch of other features. And there are some things that I'd like to bring over that were done in InWorlds that I'd like to see running in OpenSim, one of which is Phlox. So that work is continuing. It's going to be a longer term project because there's quite a bit of work that has to happen to get it to work, but it's something that we're going to continue to do, and I will continue to maintain my own local code base. As much as possible, I'll make those changes available to the community as a whole. Some things will not be because I want to keep them a little bit closer while they're developed and tested. But for the most part, I'm open to sharing, and I think that's the way the community has been built, and so we'll continue to do that. But we'll also treat some things as proprietary for a period of time because it's in our commercial interest to do it. So yeah, there really isn't one OpenSim anymore. It's like I mean, it used to be that you would just take whatever was running upstream and you'd plop it on your machine and you'd run it. Um, Many people are aware there's an Outworlds distribution that's popular. A lot of, like I said, a lot of the larger grids maintain their own distributions. Mobius, which is a gaming focused grid, has a great deal of local changes that they've implemented that are interesting. And my focus is going to be maintaining my code base for USG and trying to communicate and share as much as possible with these other efforts. So, in the same way that we've tried to build a community here, I'd like to try and build a community of collaborators in OpenSim and continue to share that way. All right. I'm going to come back real quick to the discount plan, which I missed on when I talked about the overall thing, and then answer Old's question. And then I'll turn it over to Callie for a few more points. So for the pricing structure, I didn't mention the discount plan. We are going to offer discounts off that $20 price for region owners who buy multiple regions at a time. A discount will start at 3 regions. Currently, that's at 5%. And I won't go into all the details about the discounts as you go up. We're going to publish that with when we come out of beta, so it'll be fully documented. But there are pretty much tiers at 3, 5, 10, and 20, 20 or more, where you get additional discounts based on buying multiple regions. So if somebody wants to get additional regions, they certainly can. That discount applies for a standard region or a VAR region, but not for the low use regions, since those are essentially already discounted because they're low use. So, and as I said, we'll share an entire pricing structure in written form in the near future so that all of this is documented for you. All right. Any questions about the last section we just talked about? Old had asked agent level. I believe the standard agent level, and I'd have to check it, is 60 users on a standard region. I think in practice, we've never had 60 people on a region. We certainly did in Inroads, and I'm thinking we may test that theory a bit with the Golden Touch in the fall when we do a show. But it's configured at 60 agents, and I'm going to be looking at performance improvements to try and get us closer to that number. But it should be plenty for the kinds of things that people would want to do. And if there is any issues or concerns about that, then please absolutely approach me and ask, and we'll take it from there. All right. Any other questions? Got a quiet group today. We've got some more good stuff coming. Yeah, so Joe is asking about the time frame for flocks. Joe, it's about 6 months of work. I'm about 2 months in, and that's being done in parallel for some other work, which is partly the reason for the time frame. I would like to have it in place and fully running in production by the end of the year. But as you know, with software stuff, that's an estimate, and a lot of it will depend on how some of the other stuff goes. Yeah, like Sophia says, I'm trying to get married too. So anyway, yes, I'd like to have it in place by the end of the year.
Lex had a question next.
This is Lex. I had a follow on to that, and then my own question. Can you describe really quickly what Phlox is for folks who don't?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if you're from Inworlds, you're probably familiar with it. Phlox is because it was developed for there originally. Phlox is a scripting, an LSL scripting interpreter that was built into Inworld's Halcyon. So it basically was part of the grid server, the region server in a Halcyon grid. It's different than like X Engine, for instance, which is what most people in OpenSim would be familiar with, the standard engine that's built in. more similar to Y engine, but a little bit different still. It's fully interpreted, and because of that fact, it was fairly easy and straightforward to actually maintain um, script state and things like that. So there's an interpreter and a bytecode, a language that goes along with it, a low level language that's interpreted, and that was what you would compile down to. It was primarily popular because of its performance. It actually performed quite well, and in many cases better than what you would find on Second Life, um, and and certainly better in a lot of cases to what I think is experienced on OpenSim. We would have regions with many thousands of scripts running at any given time with really not too much trouble in worlds. So for that reason, I'd like to be able to bring that technology across. There were also some additions to the scripting language that I'll try and port at the same time, and that adds some additional capabilities to the language. So essentially, it's a scripting environment that's built from the ground up for this virtual kind of setting for LSL. And my hope is that it brings some stability overall to the scripting that's done and makes region performance more predictable.
And from what I remember, it's a bit more forgiving with the scripts, so it should be backwards compatible with stuff that's like already written for OpenSim on other.
Yes, correct. So there are some things, for instance, in an OpenSim and XEngine, you can't do, like assigning variables statically at the beginning of a script. There's some cases where that doesn't work. Um, in in the Flex case, it was supported. So there aren't any cases I'm aware of that where it wouldn't work in the other direction. In other words, like some feature in XEngine that wouldn't be supportable, but in the other direction, it's more flexible. So hopefully we should be able to maintain backwards compatibility. Okay, so Lex asked about the process for testing and rolling out new code. So right now, it's a there's a couple of different grids that I manage. Um, I have a development grid that runs on local machines at my house here, and it's a full blown grid with grid servers and regions and all that stuff. It's essentially a replica of what we run in beta, and I can use that for local development and testing, and often do basically to do additional initial feature development for new features. Once I've got something that is uh, developed enough that it's feature complete, and I'm not going to go into a lot of details because I don't want to bore everybody, but I'm trying to follow a very well defined process where feature development happens and the features get released, and the structure for how the code is managed is well defined. But once a new feature is complete, and that complete means tests are written and running and passing and everything else, we'll roll that out next to the beta grid, and it'll live on the beta grid for a period of time depending on the size of the feature, and things could be very short period of time, it could be quite a bit longer. So ultimately, uh, it'll run on the beta grid, and then from there, I usually announce a rollout that's coming in Discord and through our forums, and that will continue to do that. So basically, I'll talk about rollouts um, through Discord and provide information as new features are being developed. And as always, if you have interest in a feature or you have a thought for something that we could develop for the grid, that's what the bug tracking and feature tracking system is for. So feel free to put in um, feature requests, for instance, and we'll look at those and prioritize them in addition to the other bug fixes that are going in. Yeah, so that's our major process right now. I'll provide more information as well as we get a little closer to production. come out of beta, but I expect that I'll continue to follow that process. So it's really tiered releases through beta and ultimately rolling out to production.
Tamara asked a question, Tam. She says, will there be a way to reach other hypergrids with ads? Search will only work for people on USG, right?
Yeah, Tam. So that's correct. Search is grid local. There is no. It's an interesting thought. There is no uh, hypergrid wide search mechanism. It used to be something called Metaverse Inc. That's not really, as far as I know, is not supported anymore for search. But so right now, yes, search will be local for the grid that you're on. Uh, Probably the best way to advertise. That's something that we should kick around and see what vehicles could be provided. But Discord is a good way because there's lots of people from multiple grids on the Discord servers. There is a creators in our own server. There's a creators guild area that we've allowed people to post ads, advertisements, and things like that in. Um, but the in grid capabilities, in particular on search for classifieds, is grid local. All right, if there's no more questions right now, and like I said, we will have an open Q&A at the end, I'm going to turn it over to Callie.
Steamy mentioned that in response to the previous conversation that Hyacinth made something that's global. You may want to ask her about that in relation to search. Just FYI, it was posted in the coffee.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can follow up with Hyacinth. That sounds interesting.
Okay, so the next segment is in regards to creators coming to the grid. As most of you may be aware, Branimations is among us now and is in the process of making USG the Branimations hypergrid store. We also, of course, have Etheria and the wonderful Dinkies, and we've got several Dinky creators as well. And we'd like to continue to help promote creators. So we're actually going to be adding some more. We've got some SL creators that are going to be coming over. There'll be more details. I don't want to, say anything until it's final because I don't want to give anybody false hope or, I already have enough of that as it is. When I start talking to people, I get really excited. So, but Branimations has joined us officially for now. We've got a couple of others that are going to be coming over. We're also looking at Quark, Chuck String. He's actually got an avatar on the grid as well. So we're going to be in talks with a couple of the mesh body people and seeing if we can't get something going on USG for that. So a lot of those folks that do come, one of the things that we try to do is help with issues around security. Hypergrid is not ever going to be a place where theft doesn't happen. But all you can do is take steps in the right direction, and there are things that we can do that make it a little less attractive for people to try and do that. Anybody that's determined is going to do that. It's just right now. I'll tell you that right now. It happens in SL, and the copybotting comes from SL, and sadly, some of it came from IW. So but all we can do is try and work towards making a concerted effort to hinder that process. And the other bit about it is if people come over, one of the things they're finding is when they come over, there's really an untapped market here. So that's kind of the approach we've been working on and trying to help people with that. So keep your eye for that. There's some new content, new creators that are coming. I think there's going to be a lot of expansion and growth, and a lot of it might find its way here and then spread out. And I think that'll be a big benefit to all the residents here. And that's our ultimate goal.
Yeah, Kelly's already stole the credit card. I have to try and get it back from her.
Oh, you didn't see the other credit card gone? I took the gold credit card, just so you know, higher credit balance.
Yeah, so I just to add to what Cal just said, just really briefly, I think, and this is something I think that every content creator has to kind of sort out and decide for themselves. But a lot of the people that are in OpenSim are also in Second Life, so many of those customers are the same customers, and I think what I'm hoping that is that more content creators will basically decide that there's an opportunity to bring their business and serve those customers in OpenSim. So, um, and hopefully we can provide a nice stable basis for that to happen. So anyway, welcome Abranimations and Abramel, and it's great to have you here, Etheria. You as well. You know that you trusted us early on. Uh, that's really wonderful stuff. It's been good, and I know there's others at the table that are content creators as well that create for SL. And thank you for being part of our grid as well. And I'll do my best to support you going forward.
That was it for my section. I don't want to give too much away without having something concrete, but there's a lot of reason to be excited, you guys. I know that all of the stuff, that happened last year kind of killed a lot of things for people, but we absolutely have reason to be excited in many ways. So I'm gonna go off mic and let Eagle handle the next segment. We got a lot of stuff coming up. So Eagle, the floor is yours.
Alrighty, everyone. I had the wrong window. Yay. Um, it's great to have everybody here. Um, we have a lot of like really big, cool stuff coming up as far as events. In September, beginning in the middle of the month, September 14th, with a kind of pretty big wedding. And it might be the grid owners. I don't know. Crazy. Um, we're going to have a wedding and reception. That'll be September 14th. A huge party. So, we'd love to have everybody come and enjoy and just kind of, be with them on that day. There may be. We're working on it. We're talking about it. Yeah, lots of cake. That's right. We're talking about it for the Creators Guild. That should have actually been up front. Um, we're talking about some kind of event. We haven't really worked out yet what we're going to do. But, we want to work on uh, stuff for the creators here because we have some fantastic creators. So, um, you know, just keep your eyes and ears open as we sort of get into more detail with it. We'll certainly be letting you know both here in Discord and in World. Um, so keep your eyes out. You never know what's going to happen. So, as I was saying, September 14th is the wedding. Yay. Music, dancing, all that stuff. It's going to be awesome. It will most likely go off around 11 a.m. So, keep the date, please. During that whole week from September 14th through the 21st, we'll be doing some stuff. So the following day, the 15th, is a Sunday. We'll be celebrating the grid's 1-year birthday. So we'll have some kind of party. So come and party with us. It'll be awesome, like very awesome. I know. Um, After that, we're thinking about doing a hump day fun day here on the grid uh, during that week. Maybe we'll start with some music here, and then maybe we'll go on a grid crawl throughout Hypergrid. Um, so keep your ears open. I know, keep your ears open We may be looking for suggestions on where to go as a group, and just make a day of it. Hump day, fun day. So that week will culminate on September 21st with the Golden Touch, the 5-year anniversary of the Golden Touch. It's going to be a really big show. And as usual, 2 shows on a Saturday, one at 11, one at 2. It's really going to be spectacular. So if you've never been to one, please come at one of those times. It will be live streamed for the 2 p.m. show. If you can't make it, but that's going to be a really big deal. We would love to see everybody there. It's absolutely an awesome, awesome show so far. That will be the 2 p.m. show will be followed by a Pyro musical by Pyro VR. So it's going to be a big day, and you're going to want to be here for it. The last thing for that week is Sunday the 22nd. Sorry about that. The Golden Touch will be doing a meditative production. It will be held in the meditation area on the Skye Sanctuary. It is a number about 30 or 40 minutes long, all around meditation. It is a visual production, and nothing like this has ever been done. It's going to be quite spectacular, frankly. So again, our hope is that you join us, check us out, see what we're doing. There's a lot of stuff coming and happening, and a lot of stuff you may not have ever seen before. So it's pretty cool stuff what we come up with, the people here, and all of us, actually, all the creators. So that's pretty much the this also includes the Utopia Skye community birthday, which that community was formed in 2002. So we, this grid, is part of a larger, much longer standing community. So all of that happening in that 1 week, it's going to be big and it's going to be great. I think that's pretty much all I have.
Cool. Thank you, Eagle.
Yeah, that's. I'm so looking forward to that week. Thank you, Eagle. Seriously, that's going to be some fun stuff. We actually have successfully done. Well, actually, we're in the middle of one. We did an erotic art fair that went off in May. Was really good and well received, and we're in the middle of a PG moderate art fair going on now, and we've got a weekend of events coming up for that as well. So to close out that event. So yeah, there's a lot of things coming, and just because we don't have events listings or anything like that doesn't mean we're not active. We also currently we have Fetish Fire that runs every Saturday from noon grid time until 6. You'll know that by the streaming lounge channel. It seems to kind of get lit.
Yes,
but
it does.
yeah, it does, doesn't it? But it's fun stuff, and so we've got a lot coming on. That's why I'm going to circle back to what we spoke about in the beginning with Discord. I know it's super easy to get frustrated when there's a lot of chatter. We may not be big in quantity of population, but we have a lot going on. So there's a lot of channels here, and so it can be really frustrating when the thing is pinging you and pinging you. But don't mute the server, because then you miss the opportunity to engage in this community with the people that you've elected to be residents, friends, and counterparts with. If you have questions on that, if you need help individually on Discord, let me know. I will happily help you. And Lexi, to answer your question, Lex asks if a brand animations is open. At this minute, no. It's a work in progress. I see he's typing too, so we'll give him some time before we completely tackle him into the ground. I mean, welcome him with open arms.
So I've got one other thing I want to add, and then I think we'll switch to open Q&A. We're sitting in a space, for those of you that are in world, this was created by both Callie and Bensky primarily with the Prim Wizardry. It's kind of a special space, and it gets to the Utopia Skye community going back to 2002. So if you look around, you'll see pictures of various virtual environments, some of them gaming environments, MMOs. There's Second Life there that's represented there, which is an old virtual world kind of setting. And finally, our own USG grid, which is the kind of culmination and where we're currently working, although we are involved in other MMOs currently as well. The one thing, and I want to brag about my partner for a few minutes here, Callie, that I think is consistent about all this stuff has been a focus on community. And she's amazing at building community and cultivating it. And frankly, the reason that we are going to do a commercial USG is kind of partly the community building part. So when we first started this, we did it because we were trying to build a place to do shows for, and in the process of doing that and opening things up with Fetish Fire and things like that, we've met and made some wonderful friends throughout the hypergrid and really extended the community that we have here beyond what we originally started with. And I just want to continue to be able to do that. And I think Utopia Skye is about that. So that's what you'll see. A lot of businesses will have a mission statement, and ours is about community. So you're going to see that be our focus: building community, taking care of our residents, really focusing on creativity, creative elements. Hence the dance focus for GT and so on. And it's why we really want to be good to content creators. And encourage that activity as well. So it's the thing I really wanted to kind of point to is that we've been doing this, and Callie in particular has been doing this for a long time. It's an extension of that, and I'm proud of her for all the things she's done over the years, and I'm especially proud for where we're at and what we're doing right now. And I'm really glad to welcome you all and have you be a part of it. So thank you for being here. We're not done. We're going to open up the floor for Q&A. And again, thanks.
Yeah, she's not in the voice channel. She needs to join the voice channel, Nate. Thank you, Mike. You know, it's funny because when Utopia Skye started back in 2002, it was really a creative house, and it started in a small game called The Sims Online. And between the radio station, we actually had a commercial presence there for about 7 years. And several DJs. We've done publishing. We actually had a peer-to-peer training school. There are so many things that we did back in the day, and it's amazing to me today to see some people from the original Utopia Skye community that are here today. So from 2002 to the present, and we still get people that come to the website and are like, "Oh, hey, I know you." We also do a lot of beta testing in MMO games. That's why you see so many of those pictures here, because they represent parts of the community's life, but certainly not the whole. So there's a lot that we can do. It's not just the grid stuff. I mean, the grid stuff is a great presence and great creative focus, and the theater is too. But what about writing? What about things like that? I mean, let's make this, a place where your creativity can just run free. I know I'm an idealist, but that's how this started, and that's really the spirit behind it. So. Hey, Emra.
Okay, so I think at this point we will. That's the actual kind of agenda for the meeting. So we're just going to open it up for general questions and answers. So feel free to unmute. As you know, we're doing push to talk, so you'll have to activate that to join the discussion, but feel free.
Ivan, interestingly enough, VKS is the name of the guild in WoW. It was on Argent Dawn, the first server out of beta, because I beta tested that with the community. So yeah, I'm a longtime WoW player. That's awesome. We should talk sometime. I wanted to talk to you, but anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Really, if you have questions, please unmute. We'll try and get to each of them in turn. Some questions we may have answers for, but please don't hesitate. There are no stupid questions.
And remember, it is push to talk.
Hi there, it's Ernest here. Do you have any plans for any sort of live events of open mic nights, that sort of stuff?
I can take that if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I just recently reactivated my Poetry Garden group. And that is a group that did have live mic nights and things like that for poetry readings, story readings, general like brainstorming sessions, and what we called the Bailey Room, which in a castle was the room you would find information on things and stuff. So yeah, there are going to be plans for that. That's just in start. So if you're interested in that, while you're here, Ernest, make sure you join our groups, and I can send you a bunch of group invites. Trust me, we have no shortage of groups here. Let me tell you that, okay? So if you want them, I'll send them over to you.
Thank you. That'd be great to check out.
Not a problem.
Any other questions? Yeah, I was going to say the ticketing system, of course, it's used for bugs and issues like that, but it's also usable for feature requests. So if there's things that you'd like to see on the grid or features you'd like to see us implement, you can use that as well. It's handy because it captures the stuff in one place, and then we can work it from there. But and you can always, all of us are approachable, so you could certainly also just send a note card or contact Callie and myself or Eagle, and we'll do our best to address things.
Yeah, and if I'm not on the grid, please reach out to me in Discord.
Right. Discord is usually pretty safe to find one of us.
All right. If there are no questions, which is okay, hopefully that means that we did a good job of conveying information. So a couple of quick summary points. We will be producing a written document for the pricing structure. That's going to be coming out before our September 1st deadline when we come out of beta. We'll also produce a document that talks about the Creators Guild region and the stores and how those are going to be handled. So that's all written down in one place. So you can look for some of those coming. Lex's comment about release process, I will try and formalize that a little bit more. We use Discord for communication for that, but I'd like to get that kind of formalized a bit more before we come out of beta. And our next meeting will be in August, at the tail end of August, right before we come out of the beta program and into regular release status. So one last call for questions, and if not, I will thank you all for being here.
If there's no questions, if there's no questions at this minute and you think of something later and you think you should have asked it during the meeting, just send it to us in a direct message and we will try and get it answered for you. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. And please feel free to look around this area, this town hall, and the history of the community that you're part of.